Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the He Lives podcast. The genius of working with animals is they are everywhere and they're constantly giving us messages. Even when we are scrolling on social media, listening to songs, watching movies, all the clues are there. We just have to listen and decode them. And this podcast will help you do that. Today's podcast is episode number 17, Myth and Legend, the Loch Ness Monster. And it's one that touches my heart and coincides with a fantastic story. When I was 14 years old, I was actually famous for a week or so because I saw the Loch Ness Monster, believe it or not. I've put a picture of the newspaper from that day from that day in the thumbnail, and I'll go into more discussion in that in the afterwards. So please subscribe to my Spotify to unlock the latest wisdom, where I discuss the channeling and decode how it can help you heal whatever it is that the Loch Ness Monster holds within you. I welcome my ancestors as I welcome the myth and legend of Nessie, the Lady of the Lake, the great loving water dragon of Scotland. He lives straight from the heart. I am the last of my kind. I am a water dragon and Lady of the Lake. I'm here to tell a story for you all, a story about how love can open the gateways to help you truly remember who you are. My life has been so wonderful, and I cherish the days of old when everything was the tale of myth and legend. But in the most recent times past, all those stories have been about war instead of love. But times now are changed. My challenge today is to transmute to you a gentle message that will recalibrate your senses so you may more deeply feel me and enter into your own trance-like state of wisdom as I tell a grand story from old. A story that bridges the gap between humanity and the hidden world invisible to mankind. I am the one they call the divine gatekeeper of love, and I alone have divine access to the inner mysteries of heaven here on earth. I'm sure you have all read the stories, fairy tales and myths of old, but after hearing such long tales being passed down for so many of your generations, you may have forgotten what those stories were for, and your belief in magic may have faded. Stories are not just stories, for stories are based on love, and love is real. It just depends on how you sense it. Do you hear love? Do you see love? Do you smell love? Do you feel love? Humanity's senses were dulled over the centuries, and this dullness has prevented you from seeing the colourful landscape hidden before you, a magical landscape hidden from your awareness. My time here has been understandably short, because as I crossed the divide, there have been many who would have done anything they could do to capture a glimpse of me, to make me their own. But I belong to nobody, and nobody is who I am. I am the one who makes the legends and stories come to life, for I am the doorkeeper, the access way for those who become legend, and none can pass unless I allow it. Listen well now as I speak my story. Once upon a time there was a man so great that he took pride in being so. His greatness was no illusion of arrogance. He was a man so significantly connected to his heart that words cannot express his greatness. His life was a battle of ups and downs until one day he chose a different path, a divine path. His story begins in the time of old, a time when all men battled for their own greatness, each leading their own way to find the great chalice, the chalice of creation. Some call this great achievement the mystical path of enlightenment, but for a man there is no path greater than that of which is dedicated to the path of freedom. Arthur was his name. You know him as Arthur of Camelot, but I knew him as Arthur the Great because he was so different from other men. But to the unkeen eye, he looked just the same as others. But it was his actions and his heart that made him stand out to me. Arthur lived in the time of Avalon, a time when the rule of men was governed by the success of battle. Arthur was the greatest warrior of them all because he fought for a greater cause than war, because he fought for love. He fought for the pride and freedom of all men and women, and this is what made Arthur so different from others. The reason Arthur made such devoted acts in the name of love is because he knew the secret of sacrifice, and each sacrifice he made was in the name of love. The first time I saw Arthur, I was swimming in the Loch. It was a beautiful sunny day and the land was warm and still, until in the distance I could hear the clattering of horses' feet and scraping metal. But that was not all I sensed on that day. Before I could hear him or see him, I felt an enormous golden presence of love, a golden light that shines so bright I could feel it in the depths of my heart. Then, as the clattering of steel and thumping hooves came closer into the valley, he burst into my vision like a bursting sun spreads its light in all directions as I floated underneath the surface of the water. Here began the legend of the knight in shining armor. He had just finished his quest of finding the Holy Grail, and he was heading back to his kingdom to share the great news. He galloped furiously along the path like an angel on horseback, becoming one with his horse, demanding time stop, and he moved forward as dust was lifted behind him. He was holding a golden cup in his hand, bearing it to the sky, holding onto his horse's reins with the other as he tenaciously galloped forward. It was then that I lifted my body from underneath the water. I was only curious to feel and see, so bright, so strong, so deep in service, but I had not stopped to consider my actions. As I rose my body from the water, I made quite a splash which disturbed his tenacious focus, causing his horse to come to an abrupt halt. Arthur was thrown from his horse onto the gravel path, landing close to the apple tree that sit on the river bank. I slowly paddled closer towards him to see if he was unhurt. As I approached, he did not stir. He was but unconscious. I slowly moved closer to get a look at him, and then I noticed movement. With a groan, he pushed himself up onto his arms and dragged his body towards the tree and lay against it and closed his eyes to rest. He had not yet seen me, but his horse was fully aware of my presence. I gently moved closer, and as I disturbed the water, he opened his eyes and stiffened in shock and fright. Unable to stand, he just stared with wide eyes. I slowed my approach as he gathered his senses. He began to remove his armor and shoes so he could move again, and as he did, I moved closer and closer still until I was there at the shore. With his armor off, he stood and laid his sword against the tree and gazed at me no longer with fright but with amazement. I moved closer, and as I did, he picked a red apple from one of the tree branches and walked towards the shore to meet me. Who was this man so brave to meet me, I thought, for I am no ordinary being. I am the goddess of the deep. Men who could not feel their hearts called me the monster of the Loch, but this man walks towards me with open arms, and he offers me a red apple. I glided closer to meet him. His horse, deterred, began feeding in the grass some distance away, awaiting Arthur's command. He entered further into the water, and as I came closer, I took the apple from his hand. He stood there looking up at me with a big smile on his face. I had not witnessed such a man, and yet here he was, feeding me an apple. As I ate the apple, I felt the love of his offering in my spirit. Undeterred by my large presence, I moved closer, and he threw his arms around me, as if I were his lost soul partner. Our hearts connected in a profound merging of souls, and together we became one. I had never felt such a deep connection before. We were lovers, yet here I was, a hidden creature, a dragon of the deep, and here him, a knight in shining armor, fallen from his horse, treading into the lake to feed me an apple. Our lives throughout time, past and present and future, flashed before my eyes, from the Garden of Paradise of old to the Garden of Paradise of new. This man was no man at all, he was something I did not comprehend. I poured my heart into his, and as my story unfolded into his heart, so did his unto mine. I, the last water dragon of earth, the connection and gatekeeper of the realms of old, a goddess of divine access. But he was a warrior angel from above. The highest heights of heaven could not keep him still, for he was always seeking to be of greatest service in the name of love. A sacred warrior beyond definition, as I saw his choice of diving down from heaven, a flaming angel, leaving a trail of fire behind him, trailblazing the path so others could follow into the depth of love. Suddenly, the energy between us climaxed, and he threw his arms backwards and fell into the water, with eyes wide open, with an expression to match his complete amazement. "You are my divine counterpart," he said. "But how can this be? Who are you?" She speaks back to him through her heart, but it is a vibration, a deep vibration that Arthur recognizes, yet has not felt before. "I am the divine goddess who called your name, and here you stand before me. It has been so long, even I had forgotten your name, but when our hearts touched, I remembered. You are my guardian angel, a divine warrior of justice, the great bridge maker between heaven and earth. You are the one. You are King K. I do not recall this name, and what do you mean I am the one?" "You are the one who reunites the hidden worlds, the one who ends the wars between man and creation. You are the protector of the realm. You are the deliverer of justice in the name of heaven and all of creation. You are the bridge keeper of love." "How can that be? I am just a man seeking justice." "You have always been a seeker of justice. You have just forgotten who you are. But your heart does not lie. You are the one. Your true land is not Camelot. It is hidden deep within your heart. I do not fully grasp what you speak, but I felt it. I felt like a giant. I felt like a dragon. And together we were alive. I have never felt such deep and divine love. It has toppled me from my feet. What does this mean?" "It means we have found each other, and that is enough. For today marks the day of all days, the day of union through love. A love that knows no boundaries, a divine love that sparks joy in the hearts of all who witness. Let it be known in the depths of the earth and the heights of heaven itself, that we are here now, we are reunited. I fear nothing, but you are not human. They call you a monster. How can I love such a creature as you? I am many things, but a monster I am not. I will guide you back to your home, and there you will see who I am, and more importantly, remember who you are. Climb on my back, and we shall depart. Even though I do not remember, I trust you." Arthur turns back to shore and walks towards the path where he fell. His horse draws near to him. He removes his saddle and reins, and tells his horse he will back to claim him. He pulls a hooded jumper from his sack and covers his soaked clothes with, and walks towards the golden cup he was holding before he fell. He picks it up with great reverence and dusts it off with his garments and walks back towards the shore and kneels before her. He fills the chalice with water from the Loch and holds the chalice high above him. "I am struck in awe. You have brought me to my knees with your gracious love. My name is Arthur Pendragon. I live in Camelot. I do not understand what you mean by home. My home is here, but I am willing to learn and remember. I will take you up on your offer, and in your name I bless myself with the waters of the Loch, and I take the journey with you." Arthur covers the chalice in cloth and places it under the apple tree. He then walks back barefoot into the water. Nessie lowers her head as he climbs onto her back. "We go now. We go to claim your rightful heritage, the heritage of divine access and partnership with the divine. You are the great gatekeeper, and I am the key. Watch, and you will see." She slowly turns them around, and as Arthur holds tightly, she propels them effortlessly across the dark waters. The wind blows sharply in his ears as she speeds them towards a cliff, and as they come closer, she speaks again. "We must submerge a little now in order to enter the divine gateway. Be ready and hold strong." Arthur, always one for his bravery, nodded and held tighter, and without hesitation, they headed towards a cliff face, deep in the dark waters of the Loch, and began to submerge into the deep dark waters. It was a cave system, a hidden entrance to an array of different tunnel systems. Arthur could not see in the water, but even if he could, it would be too dark to see a thing. The cold seeped into his bones and made him shake with intensity, but he held strong. For what felt like hours he held his breath, but within less than a minute they reached their destination. As they submerged, he gasped for air, laying on her back. She vibrates a message to him. "We are here. Look around you. You are home." He opens his eyes and sees they are in a lightly lit grotto, a hidden paradise in the earth. It was green everywhere, an ancient grotto full of trees, vines and exotic flowers he had never seen before, and the climate was warm. The rocks were green and black like emeralds, shining crystals under the water. He looked upwards and he could see the sky, but it was not the sky of Scotland, it was somewhere completely different. "Where are we?" he said. "Watch and I will show you," she replied. And what he saw next he would never forget. Arthur slid down her side and walked ashore, and as he turned to see her, she submerged into the water, and within moments a woman arose from the water in her place, as if she were the water herself, and walked ashore. Melissa came from behind the trees and waterfalls on both sides to meet her, and draped her in deep purple robes as if she were their queen. Arthur stood stunned at her beauty and the magic of what he had just witnessed. She approached Arthur slowly and stood before him and spoke powerful words that vibrated through his soul. "I am Queen Ave of the Aramar. Welcome home, my love. It is time to remember who you are. Let the pain of forgetting go and embrace your new home in my heart. We have lived here for generations in secret to protect our presence from those who wish to destroy the heart of love. But your heart is pure and generous. It is my wish for you to enter with me into my hidden kingdom." "It would be my pleasure," said Arthur. They held each other's hands as she led him into a hidden entrance behind the waterfall. Inside was warm, thick air and shimmering lights, and as his eyes adjusted, he saw he was in a cave system filled with rivers and waterfalls of purple and white light, lit by the shining lights of the glowing amethyst crystals. He was in complete astonishment as she slowly guided him by his hand, stopping as and when he needed to take it all in. "There are people here to see you," she said. "People you had forgotten." Arthur was still in complete awe and astonishment as he was led down deeper into the caves until they came to an entrance. She commands the guards to open the door and they roll the cave door open. Together they walk through an oval entrance into a greater hidden kingdom, an inner earth. He looks around him. They are no longer in a cave, but in a faraway land like a fantasy. And as they continue, they walk the path downward towards another cave system into a large opening. There was blue sky and crystal clear waters rushing through the landscape before him, and on top of the bank was an army of peoples, stood in silence and reverence. Many were not even human, but he felt no fear, only astonishment. They were people from all different realms, thousands of animals, creatures and beings he had only heard of in the tales of old. It was as if they had been waiting for him, as if they knew him better than he did. Struck in amazement at this reaction towards him, Ave guides him to the cliff edge, and she turns to him and says, "Listen and follow my words, and you will remember who you are." She asks him to turn towards her and close his eyes, and as he does so, the whole realm watches on. The Melissa bring Ave a crown, a bright gem-studded crown for her king. She walks slowly and stands in front of Arthur, and speaks with a voice that vibrates through the kingdom. "I speak with authority from the highest order, as I welcome you as my king back into the realms of hidden love. I, Queen Ave of the Aramar, crown you, King Kay, Lord of the Realms, Uniter of Justice and Protector of Love. Welcome back to the land of the living, my beloved." She lowers the crown onto his head, and as she does so, a divine light shines downwards through the crown like a portal and into his head and down his body. Arthur stands uprighted as floods of images and feelings flow through his consciousness, like waves of water beneath the ocean. He falls into a deep vision, as if he had left that reality and found himself in another. All of his senses activated, feeling levels of love and intensity of feeling he had never imagined, and it all felt like it was there all along, all in his heart. He felt as if he were deep beneath the waters, and he looked around and he saw nothing but darkness. He fell deeper and deeper into the darkness, floating like a man falling to his death, and all he could think was how beautiful it was. And then the darkness spoke to him. My name is Ave, the goddess of the deep, and I have travelled far and wide to find you, and now I come to claim you as my love, my counterpart, my comrade, my lover, my friend, and my king. Be with me now as you truly remember who you are. Do not be afraid, for your death is the portal to your awakening, the portal to life. Suddenly he falls deeper into the vision, and he awakes, gasping for air, and sees he has been stood on the cliff edge all that time, his eyes glistening with new colour, tremendous strength coursing through his blood. He felt new, different, a feeling of becoming the greatest gift he could ever give to himself. A gift of love so great it brings him to his knees, the gift of remembrance and divine awakening, access, divine access to his soul. He begins to remember everything, and he looks out to the people, and they shout his name loudly over and over, and he weeps in relief, joy, grief, and an end to the loneliness he felt in his heart. The crowd begin to shout louder and louder, King K, King K, King K, King K, King K. He removes his hands from his eyes and gazes openly at Ave. Still standing, she holds out her hands to him, and he rises to stand by her side. Do you trust me now? She says. He smiles gracefully, and the feeling of his heart penetrates hers. She removes his crown and places it on the pillow held by the Melissa. They face each other holding hands, and she says, "Take a deep breath, my love." Together they take a deep breath, and together they lean towards the cliff edge and fall off the cliff towards the lagoon below. As they fall toward the water, they lock a gaze in each other's eyes, and together they fall in love. Welcome to the discussion. So this was a very difficult one for me. It was really strange what happened in the lead up to this. I normally get a podcast out at least every week. This one's taken over 2 weeks, and it was very challenging, very painful. And there actually came a point a few days ago where I walked into my partner's room, and we both felt really strange. And she said, and she didn't know that I was recording this podcast, and she said, "It feels like there's a monster in the room." And I said, "Yeah, it's Nessie." And the room turned blue. We could see it through our third eyes, and we could see Nessie swimming through the house. And it was really challenging because she's in this depths, these depths of the dark, deep waters. Because my link to Nessie is really strong. Like I was in Loch Ness in last June, and I actually took a stone from the waters, which my partner gave to me. It was really like divine timing. And because I was about to attend a stone carving course in Brighton, and I took it with me, and I carved something beautiful out of the stone, and it's on my altar. And I never knew I was going to do this podcast about Nessie, because each week the next one just comes to me a few days before I have to record it. So this one was a big surprise, and I've noticed that the numbering of these uh, episodes also coincide with the energy of the tarot deck, the Thoth deck. So the last one was the Tower, the Stag was the Devil card, and so on. 13 was Death, and this one is Star Consciousness. And it was I normally find it really not easy, but easier than this was to receive the what the power, the gift is of the animal. And first I got divine access and something around death, something around surrendering, sacrifice. But there was a shadow that wasn't coming through. I wasn't sure what it was, but I think it's blockage, something to do with blockage, because I found it really hard to get this story out. And the night before I channeled this episode, I actually sat in ceremony in my own energy, and in my bedroom, and I welcomed her to come meet me. And I was lying down on my bed, and as I had already got the download that the next animal I was channeling was Nessie, the Loch Ness monster, and she arrived, and I experienced this deep, loving embrace with her because as I said at the beginning of the podcast, I actually had a huge event in my life when I was 14. My dad took me and my brother and my godfather to Scotland to give us a tour of the homeland, let's say, because I was living in Bournemouth. And it's quite a funny story actually retelling this, but you can see it in the thumbnail there. I'm actually on the front page of the Bournemouth Advertiser, but we were also in the Dunfermline Press, and I was on XFM, Australian radio. I was on Radio 1, and they wanted us to go on television, but I didn't want to, and so my dad didn't force me, which is a bit of a shame, but I was really shy, and that's actually one of the shadows of Nessie as well, shyness. So um, what happened was we took a caravan to Loch Ness, and we had set up really fast because we left early, and we set up the caravan and everything before everyone else. And we got walked down to the shore with a fishing rod and some binoculars. My dad always had binoculars for some reason. And and my godfather Frank, who was there, he had his camera, and we were just sat there. We had some unfoldable chairs, and my brother and I were thinking about getting in the water, but it was freezing cold. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's really eerie. There was this tree, just like in the story, there was this tree right on my left, and this short shore, and the water was really clear, but you only had to walk a few meters out, and then it just dives like a cliff down, and it's 784 feet deep, they said, and it's 24 miles long, and it's got caves underneath it which connect to the ocean and the other locks and things like that. And there was this kid out on the loch on his own in a single man dinghy. It was only about, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet long, and he had two oars, and he was just, a kid. He must have been less than 10 years old. And there were some ducks in the water by the tree that was overhanging the loch. And then all of a sudden, this like shadow, like a 30-foot long crocodile or something, just kind of breached the water. And we took notice, and we were like, whoa, what's that? What's that? And then all of the people that were in the camp who had arrived after us started going, oh my God, look at that. And all of the men, not the women, it was quite funny. All the men went, I'm going to grab my camera. And they all ran back. But we had our camera. And the all of a sudden, I remember I grabbed the binoculars, and I was looking at it, and I could see it moving through the water. It was huge. And then my brother, being my brother, snapped the binoculars from me and used them himself. But I back then I had really bad eyesight, and there was this splash, and I didn't get to see it, but it was like a flipper came out of the water. But what was really eerie and scary is it started moving diagonally towards this kid in the dinghy, and all the ducks flew out the water, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, oh my God!" And we took photos which were in one of the newspapers. I think it was a Dunfermline Press, but it weren't digital back then, so it's not very clear. It looked like this big black lump in the water. And then just everybody was like, all these women had their hands over their mouth and like, oh no, the kid, the kid. And this kid hadn't even noticed. He was so oblivious. And it started heading towards him. And just as it got towards him, it just dived and went under the water. It was so creepy. It was like something out of Jaws. It was incredible. And so afterwards, all this, I think my godfather contacted the press, and it just went like wildfire. And some DJ from Australia called us, and we were on live radio. It was 7 a.m. in Australia, and it was like 11 p.m. where we were, and had to talk on the radio and everything. And found it very difficult. Um, But anyway, as I said, I was journeying with Nessie, and so I have that connection with her. And when I journey, it's like being in a virtual reality. So I've done so much purification medicine work, and I know how to work with the medicine deeply in ceremony when I'm in ceremonial energy. It's like being in a virtual reality. It feels real. So this is because of the amount of work I've done. When I first started out, I could see spirits, but now I can be in that world and feel it. And this is what happens when we purify and unlock our latent DNA. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, people out there are buying AI and VR goggles, but it's already available in our DNA. You just have to unlock it. So I asked her what her gifts were, and she took me on this journey to find out. It was really deep, and it took a very long time. As a man, I'm used to, getting information really quickly, but when working with the deep feminine, it really does take time and a lot of patience. And when I journeyed with Nessie, she took me deep into the waters of my emotions and lost feelings, my heart, etc. I held on to her fin as she let me ride with her into the depths of myth and legend. And there she showed me my own journey of myth and legend, taking me deeper and deeper to feel the energy of the deep feminine and my own deep masculine energy. And together in divine union, we met under the waters to conquer my fear of death. And it's something I'm still healing, something I'm still integrating. But she showed me that um, the myth, understanding myth, like you talk about King Arthur or Ulysses, these myths of warriors. She explained to me that those myths were true, but they're not true these days because back then men and those kind of men who fulfilled those myths had no fear of death, unlike today. And the reason that those people aren't able to see those monsters, let's call them, or I don't want to call them monsters because they're not monsters, but these hidden creatures, these titans. Back then, the energy and density of being on Earth was completely different, and we were able to see those spirits. And so she was taking me on this journey of understanding how to conquer my fear of death so that I can become my own legend. Now, what I found really interesting when telling the story was I'd recently, if you see my video on the Holy Grail, I recently did a really deep dive, incredible ceremonial journey on the 28th of February where I received the Holy Grail, which is no small deal. Most people think it's a physical thing, but it's a spiritual thing. And that really blew me away, and I'm still integrating it. But when I was telling this story, channeling it, she's telling the story, I saw this angel on the back of the horse holding the cup, and I saw the Knight of Cups, the Thoth tarot card. And I realized that this was about peace and joy, bringing peace and joy back to the deep feminine from the light masculine. So it's about the healing of love between man and woman. So, and it's also about divine awakening. It's about divine union, divine love in partnership. This isn't just another fairy tale. This is a story of my life actually with my partner Hazel. It's so complex and yet so simple to tell. But how do you tell an audience about love without feeling what love truly is? And there were some names given in there like King K and Ave. I actually know that we were actually given our real names of our higher selves, and it's not something I'm ready to disclose, but it's um it's really beautiful to go through such depth and awakening in partnership with someone you love. You can't do this on your own because you need someone of the opposite sex to mirror that hidden and lost love within you, within your heart, and they hold down the other. Love is your soul bursting forth through you. This is what I've experienced, and shouting its name from heaven above and demanding you remember who you are. So, who are you? Who are you really at a soul level? Who are you at a soul level? When I talk about this in my videos, I call this the innate. My partner and I learned this through Cryon. We heard about this guy called Lee Carroll, who was actually an engineer, and he started a YouTube channel and he started talking about the innate, and we ran with that. It really lit our souls up, and we followed that. and it's really about the embodiment of your soul. And so it's like full embodiment of love. So if you're willing to find out, you're in the right place because this story is absolutely full of gold. So let's start and dive a bit more deeper with the truth of love. So, what is love? Well, love is the great sacrifice of that which no longer stands, serves, or fights for love, because love is glory and love always wins. My whole journey has been a sacrifice in the name of love because it was and always has been to meet my divine counterpart, my divine flame, but also to meet myself. And more importantly, to meet myself because I cannot meet my other in love if I do not first meet myself in love. But what we saw and what we felt is so profound. But from across all the universes, we've literally been universes apart from each other. But through our love story, I tell all of these stories in her honor because she is my deep water monster. She is my world and she is my divine awakening. Because it is only through love, through divine union, that we can truly come into divine union with ourselves. And when we meet ourselves, we meet each other, for we are one. Pretty profound. These are words to describe love, so many different iterations of the words love, but the words we use today are not high enough in vibration. They've lost their vibrational feeling because they've tried to destroy our indigenous heritage, our language, our Akashic indigenous heritage, the heritage we all forgot we have, the heritage of the innate body, the smart body, the soul awakened here on earth to become a whole, to become again the heart and soul of your own life. Love can and will only be and live in partnership because anything other than unity is just separation, trying to keep us all apart from one another. I, however, am here to not just tell a story of divine union, but to live it through my hearts of hearts, and I will live it with my partner for as long as she will have me. Love can't be forced, can't be lied to, but love will demand sacrifice because love is the greatest feeling of all. Because love is everything there is. Love is freedom. Love is sunshine. It's her smile. It's her laugh. It's in the way she walks and moves. And it's in her art because she is a walk of art. Namaste.